Welcome to the Friendlyjordies Podcast, minus Friendlyjordies. However, we do have our main man over here. He's going to be guest hosting with us, Spanian.
Yeah, we're not going to do the Kanye thing of like, I'm Spanian, check me out, bro. I've been driving around eating food and stuff. I'm not going to be doing that. But
Be doing that?
No, we won't be doing that.
Well, then we're not going to get any viewership. So
all right,
I hope you're happy that we're going to like go into oblivion on the internet.
All right, fine. What I meant to say is we'll exclusively be getting takes from Spanian. That's what I meant to say. But yeah, welcome. He's
Jordan's not here
for reasons you can imagine.
You can imagine.
We don't know where he is.
I don't think we can delve too much into. However, it is temporary. He's going to be here soon. He might even come tonight. He might walk in. But he wouldn't even know that we're live.
No.
So
this could make for an interesting party. I suspect he very well could just walk in, but if not, our lives. I don't know where he is.
Yeah, but we actually genuinely don't know where he is at the moment. However, he is fine.
Yeah,
I did speak to him yesterday, and he was fine.
He's seen him, yeah.
So, he's not here. Hopefully, he'll be here next week. And we're going to continue the pod as usual.
Your boy Shawarma
today is an
FM.
Episode of Shawarma FM.
Shawarma FM. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, my brother. How are you doing?
Very good, my brother. Something about Allah. I forget.
Something about Allah.
It's like
the good news.
It sounds like a sitcom.
The second marriage.
What do they say? There's a saying they say like if God willing. That's what they say. They go, God willing, right?
Yeah.
How do you say it?
Inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
Inshallah. All right. Well,
inshallah.
Let's start with you casually mentioned.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening on the internet, and by a lot I mean everyone's talking about Kanye. So let's take your take on Kanye because we haven't spoken a lot about it.
My take. Oh my God.
And don't worry, miss. You can be as egregious as you want because Jordan's not here, and I'm pretty sure it's going to help with our algorithm anyway. So.
It's such a fucked thing that we're at that point with the internet where it's just like, mention the thing that's controversial and it'll pump up your video. But, obviously right. No, I'm joking. Yeah.
Dude, I heard the best take from Ari Shaffir. Do you know Ari Shaffir, that comedian?
No.
He's a Jewish comedian.
Right. What did he say?
He's mates with Joe Rogan and he's been like on the circuit for ages.
Yeah.
He said the best thing.
What did he say?
Is that he said Kanye should make exactly the same points, but in music form, and none of this would happen.
He's like, so true.
Convinced a generation of girls to dance at how they're gold diggers at clubs. Yeah. And I love this song.
Yeah.
Just do the same thing.
It's true. Yeah. Just
as long as they're bangers, it'll
be
fine.
You know what? That is a really good call. It's like he is very good at music, I would say. Like he is like very good at production. He's good at that. Like, why not? Isn't that way more sort of like it's more impressive to make a banger than just to talk, I think. Like I love doing this.
Particularly for a musician. Like, it makes sense if you're Ben Shapiro, because that's your superpower.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to do anything else but talk? But when you're Kanye, bro.
Yeah.
It's not your strongest suit. You're saying dumb shit all the time.
Yeah. You know what I think? You know what I think you know what I was thinking? I think that, like, the thing with him is that, like, the people that he's around, I think he just G's up on the energy around him. So when he was doing the interview with what was that guy's name?
Friedman? No.
Yeah.
Friedman.
That guy, then he's a little bit more like subdued to a degree. But like going on Alex Jones, I think that he's just like, look, I think Kanye is in some respects, and musically definitely has some like genius elements to it, like the music, what he does with the music. I think he's also kind of dumb, like pretty dumb with it. Like he's kind, as Alex Jones would say, I'm kind of retarded.
I'm kind of retarded. But he also is very mentally unstable.
That's what like Ben Shapiro was saying. He was saying like, this is a man who is having a bipolar episode. And it's like, it's kind of hard to argue that. I think that, what's really funny? This is what I was thinking about too. This is basically my take, right? Obviously, like some of the shit that he outlandishly said is like fucked and is just like insane. But if he sort of tweaked, I think apart from like the overt Hitler comments, I think that if he, like Chomsky has probably said exactly what Kanye said, just in a way of just being like, well, obviously all wars, there's a technological investment, and for whether you like it or not, there's going to be leaps and bounds in investment in technology and in science and in medicine, and these are, unfortunately, that's why figures in governments like these seem to make such leaps and bounds in these areas, and that's why people might consider certain aspects of war as being advantageous in terms of growing an investment in society. He would have said the same thing as him to a degree, but it's not how it's like how he says it and how animated he is. He says
this by saying, "I love Hitler," just before going on break.
It's they're bad metrics. Like you can't it's like bad optics. Sorry, it's just like he's kind of like a child in that I think he can't articulate what he's saying in an adult way. And
which is why he shouldn't attempt.
He shouldn't do it. He shouldn't have gone on Alex Jones. Because
here's another thing. I'm not defending him for this. However, this is a man who already probably has pre-existing mental health conditions. Is going through or went through a divorce.
Yeah.
And he's one of those, like, the best way to handle breakups is how Seinfeld does it in the show, which is like, oh, I don't think we should. Oh, good. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, we had a good run, and you walk out. That's how you're. But men and their ego. I'm not like, look, who knows how I would react if I'm getting divorced? Hopefully not the way Kanye does. Yeah. But it's a very stressful time.
Yeah.
Most divorces are initiated by women.
Right.
And so men go through, and like, divorce has like a really crippling effect on men. Apparently their life expectancy decreases by 5 years.
Shit.
If their spouse dies, their life expectancy decreases by 10 years.
Fuck.
For women, it's like they're kind of, it doesn't really affect them as
I know how that is.
Well, whatever. So he's clearly not in the right state of mind. And unfortunately for most men out there, you just have to like fucking get over it, right?
Yeah.
But with him, he's got like this huge microphone shoved right in his mouth when he's going through these manic episodes.
Yeah.
And it's coming out by like shitting on Jews.
Yeah, I think there's like I could honestly have like, there's like 50 perspectives I have on him. There's so many elements. Like, there's so many elements. Part of me feels bad for him. Part of me thinks it's like irresponsible and stupid. Like, I think there's like a lot of shit he says is stupid. Like, you can't really generalize any group. It's like what Chappelle said. It's like, there's a lot of Jews in Hollywood. It's like, yeah, you can make that observation. That's true. But that doesn't mean you can't just say like the Jews, because it's just like childish and naive. You can't just say there's so many variations in any group of people that it's just like, it's dumb. It's fucking dumb. But I think it's a mixture of like, I don't know if it's the mental health thing, or I think another element too is like, I think being super rich fucks with your head, because I think you get to a point you forget what it's like to be humble. He's definitely lacks humility in being humble. He's like literally just like, I am God, and it's just like, dude, like that's part of me is like, look, aim for the stars if that's how you feel, but at the same time, it's like kind of very egotistical, and you don't learn more. Like the Stoics and everything say that like you learn until you die. You kind of learn the most at that point till the very end, and then to like know the beginning of your life for the first time. So I feel like this is multifaceted thing of like, he's got some capability, he's got some intelligence, he says some stupid shit. He's obviously some sort of like, the environment around him fucks with his head, because he said that on Alex Jones, so he's like G'd up or something. I think money corrupts. I think there's something.
While we're at it, what the hell was that man wearing?
You know, he's done that heaps though. I think that is just him being like weird fashion shit. I think it's fucking bizarre, but he's done that a few times.
It's not a great look.
It's a bad look.
When you're saying I like
look.
Hitler, and then you're wearing that. It's like, dude.
And also like
you're not selling it well.
And you got to see the irony in him saying I love Hitler when Kanye would have been in the chambers, in the gas chambers. Like Hitler would have killed him because he was black. There is some irony there. There has to be some, like, you have to see the irony and be like, but I don't think there's any point even listening to what he says literally, because I think he's just a very confused person that maybe his money's fucked him, his head's fucking with him. And like there might be elements of what he says.
He needs to get that Britney Spears thing going on. You know, he needs to find someone that takes all his decisions for him.
Because there's elements of what he says that are true. But it's just like, yeah, cancel culture is a problem. Like, you know, there's bad contracts in music. There's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of bad handling of artists. There's a lot of shit he does say that is accurate. But then he'll just take this one point that he should say, like, the music business needs to be reformed because it takes advantage of people. And whether that's because it's run by a certain contingency of like businessmen or people or whatever or not is probably irrelevant. It's just the system is like that. Instead of that, he's just like, I love Hitler. It's like, how did you get, like, I don't know. I don't understand. He needs to Chomsky it. He needs to be like, dude, you need to, and also
he can't Chomsky. Most people can't Chomsky. Yeah,
he needs to. You need
to be Chomsky.
I think he needs. Yeah, I think he needs to like be quiet and like read more, not just hang out with like Candace Owens and like these sort of characters. Just read from. It's like anyone that says anything outlandish or like conspiratorial. It's like look from a wide field, read deeply from a huge variety of sources. Because if you're not doing that, then don't you reckon you haven't got an accurate opinion of what's actually happening? Like, you can't just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but like I have a strong inclination that he is not a very well-read person.
I think that's the problem. Like, and that's another element here, right? Too, where it's like that's the whole other side to this is like people need to stop worshiping celebrities and stop being like, it's like the the Chappelle thing of like, what does I want to know what Ja Rule thinks. Where is Ja? It's like they're entertainers, and I fall in that too. I probably shouldn't have, but I never think that I'm pretty open.
But there's a heavyweight celebrity who's just come to his defense today.
Who?
Akon. Akon was on some British TV show I was watching it, and he was saying that he supports Kanye's right to say all of the shit that he's saying. Yeah, and then they were like, "Oh, why?" And he's like, "Well, it doesn't affect me personally." And he was
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but like,
I mean, people should be able to say whatever they want, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be condemned for it if it's not fucked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. But
there's so many levels. Like the Kanye thing is almost to me is like a non-thing because there's so many. I think there's like he's just this. Like on the fringes, sort of like, for all intents and purposes, I feel like kind of crazy guy. I think that if you really want to get to the root of sort of social, cultural, whatever you want to call it, economic problems, like look at, you know, I'm still on the train of like manufacturing consent, big media, like it's the problems are there. We don't need, dude. There's enough problems in society than for someone to be like, it's the Jews. It's like, dude, it's donations for politicians. It's lobbying. It's like we still haven't like.
I love this when Miss Love, you're the one that's like, I'm just like, hey guys, come on, things aren't so simple. Got to get some more perspective here.
But I'm serious. Like, dude.
Bullying it's like the one-eyed leading the tribe of blind. He's just blind and you're a one-eyed man. He's like, come on.
Dude.
There's a dead end right here.
No, see it. I am still on the train of like all those things of like, you know, even like, you know, the 1%, like big corporations not paying their fair share of taxes. Like, let's get back to like, I'm still on Biden being like, is Biden the next FDR? Let's look at that. Like, let's stop worshiping this crazy shit that like some of the richest celebrities say. Like, it's just not an issue. Like, let's look at like you know, like donations in politics, like corporate tax dodging, like shit like that, like earning, like minimum wage, earning power.
For example, they banned menthol cigarettes in Australia, and no one's talking about it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's an assault.
There's a real crime.
As Batuta Advocate says, it's an assault on divorced women.
They're actually going to ban white wine.
Dude, who the fuck has menthol cigarettes anywhere?
They are fucked.
I know one guy
Jimmy's?
Well, he doesn't smoke like
he likes them
regularly, but like if he will have it,
yeah,
he'd much prefer it was menthol.
Yeah, well, he is
an Eastern Suburbs divorced woman.
Yeah,
so he's basically just.
But what's your? I'm honestly at the point where like I look at the Kanye thing and I'm like, this is entertaining, but it's just like a clown show. It's like I would honestly much rather watch like put it this way, I'm more interested in what Chomsky has to say on world affairs than fucking Kanye, because Chomsky is saying there's problems with like Israel and Zionist Israel and like and all those kind of things. But I think, you know, dude, a dude who does a podcast with a fuck ton of books to the ceiling in the background is a little bit more like qualified than someone with a fucking gimp mask on Alex Jones. You know what I mean? Like, it's entertaining, but like even when people are just like, well, what's Kanye's perspective? It's like he has no qualifications to have a perspective. Like, why are people giving him? Why are giving him a platform? Listen to his music. Like,
I think this is like just a general criticism of the society that we now live in.
Yeah, we're in this weird clown culture thing.
Anyone that has eyeballs has the camera focused on them on all of their views. Musicians were always cooked.
Yeah.
They were never like these barometers of ideal society members.
They're not. Most of them have mental health issues.
Yeah,
you know?
and exactly. And like they kill themselves all the time. Yeah. Like it's so it tells you that these people are not necessarily your go-to source at understanding, you know, the greatest ailments of modern-day society.
Exactly.
They're good at telling you like which beat works.
Yeah.
And then eventually ending there was like, it's a young man's game, man.
Not me. I'll stick it till the end. But yeah.
That's what they're good for. But
no, totally.
And like this has such serious, like the Kanye thing is a bit of a joke to me. However, this attitude of extreme sensationalization of really serious issues. Like, do you know they dropped that the Brittany Higgins trial?
Right.
Brittany Higgins was...
They dropped it. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, she dropped it. Well, not she, but her legal team dropped it on the idea that like her mental health is suffering so much that if it was a retrial.
Yeah.
So there was a mistrial.
Right.
And if they were supposed to go on a retrial February, but apparently like her health is so screwed up.
Really?
That they dropped the case. They're like, it's not worth pursuing because she might just die.
Shit.
And this is all symptomatic of the fact that like her entire case became so publicized that they were talking about it at fucking award functions. Every celebrity, they created such interest towards this one case that it was impossible for normal proceedings to function in a court.
That's fucked.
There was no way that the jury could block out what was happening outside.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just because every media outlet was just like dry humping. Every like celebrity was giving their take on it.
Yeah.
And it resulted in this case being almost impossible to go ahead.
But you're right. But you know what begs the question, I feel like. It's like, it's fucked. It's like, corrosive, and it's just, it aims to the like reptilian part of the brain of just like, ooh, drama and like things are happening. But the question is it just human nature? Because people are naturally drawn to it. There's obviously an industry, but like, you know, I still watch the Alex Jones thing. I was like, oh, this is going to be crazy. But like, is it just part of human nature? And if it is, maybe it shouldn't be just encouraged so much and like sensationalized. Because, you know, when there's a car crash, everyone looks. But like, it's kind of the worst part of humanity. You know, it's so base level. It's just like, he said this crazy thing. We have to have this dramatic reaction. You know, I understand the dramatic reaction, but it's like, you know, it's like if you just don't, if you, like, I don't know, just don't pay attention to it. Don't pay attention to it, you know?
You can't, because like, we're paying attention to it.
Yeah,
it's hard to like not. But
clickbait.
And the problem with this entire issue is that there is no way you can address this without censorship of some sort. Because even like, let's forget about the whole Kanye thing. Let's just talk about, which is the greater problem, which is how media outlets are just focusing on whatever will get them the most clicks, right? And so this entire issue that's your crux of the problem. And there's an economic incentive for it.
Yeah.
The only way you can like somehow stop this is by censorship. So you're going to eventually have to tell media outlets, don't report on this. Report on this issue instead. And that is going to be it's a form of censorship because some government body is going to be telling you this.
Yeah.
And that's a slippery slope because once you give the authority to the government to tell you what you can report on, what you can't.
Yeah, that's...
So we're just stuck in this situation.
Yeah.
The remedy is worse than what's happening now.
That's true, but I think it actually is as simple as... Because, like, people revere celebrities. I mean, I do it too, but like my celebrities like are way smaller and like it's just musical based and like, but people do tend to revere, you know, celebrity, which I guess is human nature. But when, like you said, when the celebrity, usually they're like entertainers, and when their opinion on culture and like socio-economic and structural issues, when their opinion on that is like sacrosanct or like held to as high esteem as someone like Noam Chomsky, it's like, we have a problem. Like, you can like someone, but that just doesn't qualify them to have an articulate opinion on like difficult issues.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Think that's Sam Harris's view on things. Sam Harris, who is like famous, he got into a lot of trouble,
right?
Because you know he's made a living out of saying how free speech is really important. In Muslim countries are shit because they don't let you say whatever you want. They curb your, rights. Like they make you do things that should be individual decisions rather than collective societal decisions.
Yeah.
And recently he came out and said, not everyone has the right to speak on shit.
Really?
So when Twitter or Facebook decides to censor the Hunter Biden story, the Joe Biden son story, that's fair.
Really?
And he even said that I don't care if Hunter Biden has like corpses of dead children in his closet, I'm still going to vote Biden.
Well, that's pretty fucked.
Yeah, because Hunter is not Joe. And just because Hunter is doing fucked up shit doesn't mean you have to report on it.
Well, that's kind of fucking dumb.
Well, that's where you're going to end up. Like
that's dumb. Dude,
but
it's simple. It's like I think the term like hate speech is like kind of vague and stupid because it's like, you can just say you can disagree with things and you can condemn them to like the core, but unless something's inciting violence, it's just you can say whatever you want, I think. But having said that, like with like something like Twitter, basically I think it's as simple as like say whatever you want, but if you it's like the Chomsky thing of saying like I can, he signed that free speech thing. It was like, you should be able to say whatever you want, but then I will vehemently argue against it and what you've said till the end. That's how it should be. But I think the line is literally when you're just calling out, like, I understand why they would take Kanye off Twitter because like you can't, I think there is a line and the line is being like, this group are fucked. And it's like, it's at a point where it's like, it's sort of inciting violence to a degree, right? So I think at that point, it's like, that's a bit fucked, dude, to be on a public platform. But that's probably the line.
Devil's advocate, though. Actually, I'm going to change that. Not devils.
Yeah.
Allah's advocate. How come it's like not an issue when it's Muslims?
Well, it is. It's the same thing on Twitter. Like if someone says like all Muslims are.
Yeah, but they like say shit. They say that shit all the time.
On Twitter?
On different platforms. They used to, particularly during the height of terrorism.
Yeah, well, that
like
was
2016, 2017.
Yeah.
It was like so acceptable to say.
That's true. That's true. I can imagine.
Like what was her name? That media. I can't remember. Jordan would remember her.
Yeah.
Like Sophie something. She came on TV and she was like, "We've got to stop Muslim immigration. I am scared of them." That was it. Turned out. Imagine. Flip that around.
Yeah,
we need to stop Jewish immigration.
That is
I am scared of them, and then bam.
No, that's
and
true.
Like, and the media reported that as like we need to hear everyone's opinion. She's scared and she has a valid point. I even understand that to a certain extent. Like
I
when
think
all you see on TV is terrorist attacks.
Yeah, it's look, I'm not justifying it, but I mean, I suppose the West would have more of a inclination to demonize like the Islamic world, and also there's the whole stigma of the Holocaust, which I think, I'm not, it's almost like more of a sort of like, at least in the media's perspective, probably like more of a get out of jail free card in terms of like, you can't say that because of like, the Holocaust, whatever. But you're right. It is a double standard. It is definitely a double standard. So it's like,
yeah, I'm not saying like that means that you should be able to go open season on the Jews. No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
I think people should be able to say whatever they want, even if it's fucking condemnable. But maybe on like something like Twitter, I can understand why they'd be like, this is a bit much, you know what I mean? But if someone just said that in the street, I wouldn't be like, you should go to jail and be fine. I'd be like, whatever extreme thing they'd say, I'd be like shocked and and then contest it. I wouldn't be like, you can't say that. It's like, it's almost like you have to make your point not through censoring someone's opinion, but by trying to convince them of the opposite thing. You know what I mean?
Actually, that was Akon's point. To be fair to him, that's what he was saying as well.
But I'm not defending what Kanye said. I'm just saying, like,
it's hard to defend that man now. But it's
a fine. But my point is like, we shouldn't be talking. I mean, obviously.
Well, let's stop talking about it.
No, but it's like, for us, we're internet people. We have to talk about it.
But like, that's actually part of the problem. We've been talking about this for, I don't know, 25 minutes.
You're right.
And
back to kebabs, sure.
Right.
Shawarma FM.
Here's another segment, miss. Dave Andrews, sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Dave Andrews has won.
Yeah, I know.
Contrary
I watched
to
his
last minute public polls and people were saying that he's going to lose this. He crushed again.
I watched his victory speech.
What was it about?
It was just like standard 101 victory speech, like semi cringe, but like I just wanted to see it. Yeah. So I watched it and it was just sort of like, it was just kind of standard, but yeah, no, I'm glad.
Well, they're sort of like, I was reading this article which was sort of talking about why Labor seems to be winning everywhere and how even not just Victoria but the federal elections as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And they're saying that there's one point which we all know, the perception of Liberals as economic managers as well as their COVID handling
has been like destroyed.
Scott Morrison's like bushfire Hawaii fiasco cost them a lot of those marginal boomers who were who usually vote Liberal, but this time they didn't vote at all, or they might swung towards independence or maybe even Labor in some instances. But they're saying that the overwhelming fact of why Labor is winning everywhere is the coalition of like millennials, Gen Y and Gen Z, voting Labor or independence.
Is it Jordan? Did Jordan do it?
Well, I don't know if Jordan did it, but like the assumption was that, and it's happened in history as well, like the younger you are, the more likely you are on the left. And as you get older, you start drifting towards the right. So that's what happened with the hippie generation.
Really? Yeah.
So there's so many liberal voters that I know that were hippies in the 70s and 80s, and they were all about free love, anti-Vietnam, and now they're like, nah, negative gearing needs to stay.
Yeah,
and so they vote Liberal. And so they assume that that's what's going to happen with Gen Y voters as well. That whereas we get older...
Right.
Because, like, think about it. Like, the oldest generation of Gen Y is in their 40s now.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were supposed to switch, but it seems like they haven't.
Right. But doesn't that just mean whatever population is dominant will vote? Like, if a population's mainly elderly, it'll be conservative. If they're mainly young, it'll be...
Yeah, but they're now saying, like, maybe this generation, Gen Y and Gen Z, even when they're older, might not be conservative.
Really?
However, I have a counter argument to that. I think Gen Y, like every generation before them and after them, will vote based on their economic interests. So if they start owning houses, they don't want negative gearing to go. Even if on surface they'll say that they're lefties, but when it comes to actually the voting booth, they'll lie.
You might be right.
However,
those
are the economic interests. When it comes to social interests, they are completely left-wing, and that will never change. So when it comes to like LGBTQ rights and all, the package, the social leftism, they've wholeheartedly accepted that. And they're not going to change, which is a difference from the generation before us.
Right.
The hippies that were for free love are now annoyed at Meghan Markle.
Yeah.
So they've made that switch.
Yeah.
Maybe we won't make that switch, but when it does come to... So what I'm saying is, like, if Bill Shorten comes again with his platform in 2019, Labor's going to lose. But if it's Albo, who's just like, nah, you can keep all of that. You can keep your boats and unnecessary indulgences that you do. However, we're gonna manage the economy better.
Yeah.
And we're also gonna like not shit on Meghan Markle. Right. Whatever that comes with it.
Yeah.
Gen Y is more than happy to vote for them at that point. And even some boomers.
That's pretty interesting.
Which is pretty...
Is that good? That's good.
I think that's annoying.
Oh, really?
I think because like the economic stuff matters more.
Oh, yeah. Fully. I was going to kind of say that, actually. Like, yeah, I kind of know what you mean.
So, now what are we going to do?
Well, it's better... we'll see what happens, I guess.
In the future. Do you ever see yourself voting Liberal?
Nah, not Liberal. I might, maybe when I'm older, I'll vote for like
Independent or Nationals.
I
see you voting for Nationals, moving to the country.
The Nationals.
Like,
no way.
And when someone asks you who do you vote for, you say it's none of your business. Just for the record, Country Party.
Nah, never. No way, dude. I'd vote Liberal before the Nationals. Nationals are fucked.
No, they are. But you're saying that at 31.
Shooters and fishers, maybe, but they're not great.
You're saying this at 31. Yeah. Let's see what you say at 61, and you will be living in the country. I don't see you living in the city for more than 6 months.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. I think depends how long I'm in Jordan's circle of like influence, because I'm pretty like he's pretty persuasive.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He definitely is.
But like, I don't know. Nah, fuck. Sometimes with the social stuff, I'm more like conservative, and the economic stuff, I'm like flipped. I'm the other way.
Yeah.
And I'm more economically just sort of like, houses should be 10 grand or whatever. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. But nah, never Liberal. But I wouldn't ever vote for the Greens either. So like,
well, if you were from Victoria, if you were from Melbourne, and you had suffered those like 5 lockdowns or whatever, and you were in 2 years of perpetual solitary confinement,
I honestly don't know.
Would you have flipped, or would you still have voted for Dave Andrews?
I wouldn't have flipped. Don't disregard the donkey vote, Ali.
You're the donkey vote kind.
Like,
and my brother is too.
I would probably lean more, if I'm dissatisfied, more towards the donkey vote. But like, I think Labor's generally a lot a lot better. I mean, I think the economic stuff is the really important stuff. It shapes society more. And it's like the thing of them being like, let's not give like huge tax breaks and the privatize everything. That's the shit that's crippling. So it's like, I think Labor, that's why I mainly vote for Labor, is that like, they're like, let's put money into like institutions, education, healthcare. Because that shit's important,
That shit is definitely important. But we've got like about 5 years. This is what I think is going to happen. Right everywhere in the world, I think like the Western world particularly has to like reinvent itself a little bit, because they're grappling with the same issue, which is that they've got this fringe right, which has controlled the right-wing mainstream party, but is not popular enough to win general elections.
Right.
So the right has to like somehow move again towards the center a little bit.
Totally.
The problem is their entire like power, not their voting base, but the power behind their party and their ticket holders are just super right. To the point where like if you look at are you serious? Yeah. During the pod?
Well, I saw it.
Why are you killing cockroaches?
They're fucked.
So you've taken inspiration from Kanye.
Oh, jeez.
Joke. I'm kidding.
Go
on. Yeah, so like, you know how Trump just came out and he said we need to like get rid of the American Constitution?
What?
Yeah.
No.
He came out, he's like, the Constitution is stacked against us. We need to like get rid of it and start from scratch.
That's extremist.
That's extreme, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about it, most Republican, not voters, but members support that guy.
Yeah.
So now you've
What
got
the
like
fuck?
the sort of mainstream, the Mitt Romneys and stuff, obviously thinking that that's a reprehensible take.
Yeah.
However, if they say anything against it, they lose their entire backing.
They're in a weird situation in America, definitely, where it's like...
Even here.
Really?
I think like part of the reason why the Liberal Party lost was because they were held hostage by the Nationals and the extreme right.
Right.
Off the Liberal Party. That's why Scott Morrison came in instead of Malcolm Turnbull. Because they made that call in whatever, 2018 or whatever he went. Yeah.
That was the wrong call, I think.
That was, in hindsight, we can look at it in the wrong call, but I don't think they had any other option. Because you can't be the leader of the Liberal Party if majority of the Liberal Party doesn't want you to be there. Even though the majority of the country might prefer that position. Yeah. It's a really shit situation to be in, which is why I think it'll take them like maybe 5 years minimum to come to like reach some equilibrium. And by that point, I think Labour Party would have lost their sort of sweet spot that they've got in, and then we're going to see another reversal. But it gives us like 5 years to ride out this power, and from my perspective, legalize weed in the meantime.
Hell yeah, dude, legalize
that might happen next year.
I think it'll happen. It's already like, you can already buy weed from the government.
Yeah, you can already, exactly. You can buy weed from the government. And it's just ridiculously expensive, I think. And like, dude, Thailand, that used to execute people.
Yeah, they just switched.
They're all fucking smoking up.
How'd that happen?
I think they saw the money, and it's just a general trend.
That's a good thing. How would you call like Howard's government in today's climate? What would you call them? Hard right?
Not at all. I don't think
right?
hard right
like
would
center?
Be Howard. Howard would actually be, like center right.
Yeah. I think that like the right definitely needs to kind of return to that. I mean, again, it's like you're really talking about two sides, social, cultural, and economic. But I think that what America's done is the right has managed to like they've managed to like sort of. What's the word? They've managed to like own and run with the social aspects of like, just like the right, and just being like which is what appeals to people, which is like talking about freedom of speech and talking about these sort of those sort of things, like stopping censorship, all that kind of shit. But then the reality is, economically, they seem to be fucked, right? They seem to be like just more banks. Not even
just economically. Like the idea that Donald Trump has come out and said that we should scrap the Constitution.
Did he really say that?
You have no idea how ridiculous that is for American nationalism is based on their Constitution.
Yeah, exactly. Right? That's crazy.
In America, the only way, how Australia is different. Australia, to be Australian or Aussie, it comes with a whole host of cultural values, as well as, like, we believe in assimilation.
Yeah.
That's what John Howard, someone that I just called center-right, used to argue. Yeah. That diversity is not the way we should look at things. We should look at the Aussie way of life, and Christianity light, not necessarily the religious tenets of it, but the cultural aspect of it.
This sort of like
is central to
Judeo-Christian values.
And it's central to Australian identity. America was really progressive. Their founding fathers said, none of that matters. This is a country of immigrants. People are going to come here from all over the world. And the way you become American is not by having Anglo-Saxon values, is by believing in these pieces of documents that we've written.
Right.
The Constitution, the legislative power, the executive power, the judiciary, and them being checks and balances for one another.
Right.
That's what makes you American. Which is why, like, in America, you can be any kind of immigrant. So we never say, that I'm Pakistani Australian.
Yeah.
I would say I'm Australian.
Yeah.
But in America, you can be fucking third generation and still call yourself Paki-Australian.
Yeah.
Pakistani American or Mexican American or Irish American or Italian American. Dude, these Italian Americans have been in America for so long and they still say Italian American.
Yeah.
And it's widely accepted.
Yeah.
Because that's not what makes you American. What makes you American is if you believe that the Statue of Liberty looks sick. Dude, I saw Godfather Part fucking 2 again.
So good.
It's so, like,
So
I don't know if
good.
you remember that scene when Don Vito is coming from Italy as a child.
Yeah.
And this entire boat of Italian, soon-to-be Americans are coming. And there's a scene where, like, the entire boat is just looking at the Statue of Liberty with this mesmerizing look.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous because if you think about it, if you're an Italian and you're a kid and you've just moved to the US, you don't even know, in fucking 1930s or 40s or whenever, you don't even know exactly what Statue of Liberty is.
Yeah.
So you're looking at it like, oh, well, that's a cool thing at best.
Yeah.
Or you're not even focused on the Statue of Liberty. You're thinking, how the fuck do I adjust in this new world?
Yeah.
How do I learn the language? What's going to happen to me? But American nationalism is not that every immigrant just looks at Statue of Liberty, does a salute and say, today I believe we are all born equal.
Yeah.
Except for black people. They're born different. But the rest of us were all born equal. And the idea that Trump is now coming out and saying, like, yeah, we need to scrap the Constitution.
That's
and like half of the country going, oh, yeah, that seems like a good idea.
Shit.
This is a
extreme.
That's
super extreme, right?
This is like the society it's collapsing. It needs to reinvent the rules.
Fuck. That's scary.
It's scary. It's really, really scary. And
that's a scary, because the Constitution, what are the main outlying points of that? It's like, whatever, like freedom of rights, like
liberty, and the
justice
pursuit of happiness.
Yeah. So what would he change it to? Like, everybody has to do my Trump University degree, and you have to get a membership to the Trump Stakes. That's going to be in the new Constitution.
He's obsessed with the election rigging. So he's saying that the Constitution is screwed up because.
But wasn't that like pretty
crux
uniformly?
Of his argument
wasn't that what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for? Quelched. Like, wasn't that proven that false? That it's like, no, there's no evidence.
Yeah, well, not for him.
Yeah,
it's this. Okay, behind all of this, is he is saying that the institutions of America, which are enshrined in the Constitution and have tremendous amounts of power, because throughout American history, bipartisan effort has been made to strengthen these institutions, are rigged against me. So we need to get rid of these institutions, and we need to bring extra executive control, which is a very typical dictator move.
Yeah. So he wants more regulation and control.
No. He wants him to make those regulations and controls, or the executive branch, the president,
right? As
opposed to these
that's
faceless.
That's like dictatorship, because you can call them faceless institutions, but like they're still what you would consider what should be, and I would say still are, you'd think, pretty bipartisan institutions that sort of checks and balances and stop executive power being able to carry it out by one person, kind of thing, right?
And one of the big disadvantages, let's say we live in an ideal world where we've got a benevolent dictator who is amazing. Let's say it's not Trump, it's Paul Keating. Let's say it's like someone like Paul Keating, who's like really smart, has all the right ideas, and says, give me more power so I can transform the society into something even better.
Yeah.
And he might even be able to do it. But the problem is that, and you see this from dictator countries, like, for example, somebody like Gaddafi, when he was one of those dictators, as soon as something happens that you take that dictator out of the equation, the entire society collapses, because there's no institutions over there that can withhold.
There you go,
and bring stability.
Yeah.
So resilience is completely evaporated.
Yeah.
Having strong this is something that Jordan doesn't actually agree with me on, but having strong institutions is paramount for long-term success of society. Because if you centralize it into these savior or these messiah figures, you might have like 10 years of amazing run.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go into this abyss of recession.
What do you think of Chomsky's political perspective of like his idea of like anarchism? This might be like a cool alternative to Trump, what Trump is saying, which is like crazy, I reckon. What do you think of Chomsky's point of like anarchism, of like any institution that is superfluous or has no value and no purpose is just abolished? That's probably a good idea, right?
Look, Chomsky comes from a very... okay, so what Chomsky is saying, his idea of anarchy...
I thought that was it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That like you take power away from...
is superfluous the word? Like pointless.
And you
pointless.
give it to like localized social bodies, which is... I love the idea. As a uni student, I used to think that is the way to go. I don't know anymore because I don't have an example of it that is really successful. The closest thing that comes to it is a place like Switzerland, which is not what Chomsky is talking about, but all the power rests in people, even for small decisions. So what we do is we vote a government every 3 years. They come up with their election campaign promises, and we judge based on that. In Switzerland, they do voting for everything.
Right.
So even policy decisions. So for example, like this weed legalization, right?
Vote on it.
We voted for the Labour Party, and we're letting them make that decision. And if we don't like anything that they say, we'll vote again 3 years later. Switzerland is going to have a vote. They're going to put it out.
That seems better to me.
But it's like constant. Every 1 month or 2 months, they have an election essentially.
I wouldn't mind that.
And their society functions smoothly. However, that's still not Chomsky's version of anarchism.
Yeah.
Because Chomsky's version of anarchism isn't that the state just gives you questionnaires to fill out and the policy decision making, but his is like the state doesn't get to do that. It's really, really localized bodies. That so like if you live in whatever suburb you live in, there's going to be council of that suburb that will make all decisions.
Yeah, okay.
For themselves, and that applies to everyone. But there are certain things that need to be collectivized efforts.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like, this is a very extreme example with something like climate change. How do you solve something like
on
that?
Like small levels.
We can't even solve it at a country level.
Yeah.
We need everyone to be on board.
That's a good point.
So the idea of these massive institutions fading away is also going to get rid of those tools that we required for some
big
complex problem solving.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
However, I do agree with the idea that more autonomy needs to be given to people.
Yeah.
So that Switzerland model is cool. I wouldn't mind that. It's alien to me. I don't understand it that well because I've grown up in this Westminster system of, democracy that it feels alien to me and I don't understand it, but it seems to be working for them.
Yeah, I mean, I love how this has just turned into like real talk with Shawarma FM. It's good. But I think like, yeah, you know what? Not even the older I get, the more I talk to Jordan, really, I think it's easy to be like arrogant and throw the faith out of any institution, and it's like naive, I think, to be like, this is bull. There's definitely a lot of institutions.
You've got to give that point of view credibility to. I don't want to speak for Jordan because I don't know if he believes exactly what I'm saying, but there is an argument. Let's look at the other argument. The other argument is that these institutions have served us well. However, we've reached a point where they're so rigid that great progressivism is impossible to achieve.
Right.
Which is why someone like Jordan, and you can understand why Jordan says this, because Jordan has been obsessed about climate change and its destruction ever since I've known him, which was since he was extremely passionate about this subject in 2011. I'm actually good. I've got some.
Okay, yeah. And
so from his perspective, we've been snoozing on this issue for so long to a point where now we've gotten to a stage where we can never go back. Things are going to change. So it makes sense that for someone that's been crying about this topic for a decade and a half now, has lost faith in institutions to deal with these kinds of things.
True, yeah.
So his point of view is that they're not serving their purpose anymore.
Right.
Their resilience is also making them stagnant.
Yeah.
And when something is broken, it needs to be fixed.
But doesn't that mean you can just reform them? Like, wouldn't something more sensible, for example, and again, Trump is kind of like the Kanye figure of like, I don't think he's some fucking genius, but like I think he's, the more I think about Trump these days, I'm like, he's kind of fucked. But I think, shouldn't he have said something like, the institutions need to be reformed, like he said about like drain the swamp. Like
he could say that, but how do you do that without more power to the executive? These institutions and their functions,
I didn't think they had so much. How much power are we talking about? Like the Supreme Court, or like what was he talking about?
Actually, the U.S. president has, domestically speaking, has actually, I would argue, less power than
the governors and shit.
I wouldn't say the Australian Prime Minister, but the Australian executive branch. In our system of responsible government, we give basically infinite power to the Parliament. The Parliament can decide everything. Anything that they want to reform, if they can collectively make that decision, then it will go through. The Prime Minister is less powerful because he has to depend on his cabinet, but our judiciary gives a lot of power to the entire cabinet. If the cabinet collectively makes a decision, it would be almost impossible for us to challenge that.
Yeah.
And if a parliament makes a decision, it is impossible for us to challenge it. In the US, the founding fathers have made these checks and balances so they are rigid. Like, where their Congress does not have nearly the sort of power that our parliament does.
Right.
So someone like Trump, who feels that the institutions are stacked against him, has no other option but to go and revisit the Constitution itself.
So do you think, is our system better or America's?
Look, again, like I said, I've grown up around this, and I've studied law in this country. I have been indoctrinated to think that our system is better, and I do think our system is better.
Right.
I have a whole host of reasons that I can argue for why our system is better, because of things like that.
I think it sounds better.
When you have it's like a religion. If you have a holy book that is paramount, that cannot be fucked with in any which way, and you want that country to survive for the next 1,000 years, you're going to hit some roadblocks because some of those ideas are going to get outdated and they're not going to suit the current environment. So what you want is, this is my opinion, what you want your system to be like, you want it to be malleable. You want, in Australia and in the UK, we've got this central tenet that no parliament should be held hostage to a parliament that has preceded it.
And that makes sense.
Right? So decisions that our grandfather or fathers made, we cannot be forever obliged to them. If we want to make decisions to change it, we can. And in our system, we can. In American system, you can't.
Yeah, okay. So basically what Trump is saying is like, I want to move to Australia and become prime minister.
No, I think he's saying he wants to move to Libya and he wants to be Colonel Gaddafi. I'm just like sort of intellectualizing his point of view, because it's not just him. There's a lot of Americans that feel that way.
But you know what?
Our society, our political system is too strict.
But you know what's interesting? I feel like, would Trump be saying that, like, so say Trump got his wish, but the Democrats won again, then they would have even more free reign, and he would be even more pissed off because he'd be like, this is bullshit. Like, Joe Biden's banned all, I don't know, gas and fracking, and now you have to have an electric car. I'd be like, this is fucked. But then someone could be like, but this is what you wanted. Like, it can't just be executive power for the Republicans. It has to be executive power for whoever's in. Still like a democracy. Yeah. So it's like...
But he feels he's going to be in.
Yeah, but like he would probably
He's also delusional. He genuinely thinks he was cheated. Like, the election results were rigged. Like, if you genuinely believe it, then you're like, okay, if we scrap this, obviously I'm going to come into
There's just no evidence to suggest it, right?
No, there's absolutely none.
Yeah.
But
so it's like, that is enough to suggest to me that he's, look, I've been won over. Trump, I think, might very well be an egomaniac. You heard it here first.
You know how Dave Andrews put in this extreme lockdown and the whole of Australia did initially, and there were these mask mandates and airplane mandates. In the US, I think like at the peak of Omicron virus, a federal judge in some random state decided that mask mandates on airplanes or airports was against the central liberty rights that Americans have. So he banned it, and that applied for the entire country. That could never happen in Australia. First of all, a Supreme Court judge, which is our version of their federal court, or like their state Supreme Court is, first of all, they'll say we don't have jurisdiction over this. Even if this issue needs to be dealt with, it needs to be dealt with the High Court.
Yeah.
So the High Court would take up this issue. And I can guarantee you that a High Court will say, based on the Constitution, the Australian government has the power to make legislation and pursue policies based on health considerations. So this is not our domain. You have to go to your politicians if you think this is wrong. But in America, you can do that.
So does that mean that like the Supreme Court can overrule a lot of the president's decisions?
Yes. They can technically overrule a lot of... a High Court can also overrule a lot of executive decisions in Australia. However, they have to be really, really mindful that the Constitution says that it's the executive and the parliament that will decide how Australian policy will work, not the court. All that the Australian court system can do is say that your actions are inconsistent with the law. Not that you can't do this. If you want to do this, then you change your laws. And then you can do exactly what you've done. So Australian Parliament and executive can do anything as long as they legislate it first.
Right. But in a way, both systems, it sounds like ultimately somebody is making a decision. Like some group is making a decision. It's just that in America, it sounds like there's more groups. So it's like, it's like more, like you said, checks and balances and shit. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't sound like there's that much difference other than maybe in America, if you want things to get done, it moves a lot slowly and it's a lot harder in America, right?
Yeah, and there's way more roadblocks. It's also like sometimes American society is called vetocracy. That
veto something.
Several institutions that have veto powers for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I remember listening to this one of the governors of California.
Arnie,
not Arnie. The one that came after Arnie was he was asked a question about this high-speed rail project that they have that will take you from LA to San Francisco. And he was asked, what's the progress on that? You've been in government for 5 years. Like, where's that project? And he said, actually, this wasn't my project. This was my father's project, who was also the governor of California. And this is the progress of it. Not a single brick has been laid. And I have 520 pending civil lawsuits about that high-speed rail network.
Yeah.
And there's so many groups that have veto power.
But wouldn't you argue, like, that guy then, the Californian guy, might agree with Trump? And even Bill
well, maybe he wouldn't agree with Trump, but if it was like a democratic version of Trump, he might agree with it.
Because even Bill Maher, he had this whole segment where it was like, I've tried to get solar panels on my shed. It's taken me 7 years, 20 grand. I had to get a box that said, this is a shed, then another box that said, in case you missed the first sign, this is a shed with 2 fucking things. And it's like, and it's still not done. It's like, there's so many bloated bodies of... So, like, he's agreeing with Trump, kind of.
Yeah, it is.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe reform the fucking, right?
Yes, you should reform it, but the question is, how do you reform it? How do you get rid of this gridlock when the powers of the courts, as checks and balance, are enshrined into the Constitution?
Do you think they did that? They enshrined it knowing this would happen, or they thought?
Yeah, they were afraid that the founding fathers were they were very intelligent and intellectuals, but they were perfectly aware that the masses are fucked. And they felt that if we don't do this, they called it the tyranny of majority, could prevail. That these
What was the Roman system?
The Roman system was essentially a lot more democratic, but it was reserved to a clan of people that were...
More like Australia.
More like Australia, but like not for everyone. So in Australia, everyone gets to have their say. But in Rome, it was like a select group of people.
But if there was such...
And there was always that battle that Jordan talks about in his show too, which was the popularis versus the optimatus. And so it was the same block of people.
But surely the founding fathers were smart enough to realize, like, this is a good idea, but like, what if they want to build a railroads, probably, a horse
They believe that if not everyone is willing to do it, then it shouldn't be made.
Surely they were smart enough to realize that's gonna make for a society that it's gonna take a lot to get things done.
Yeah, I'm sure they were aware of it, but they also felt that between the two choices, it's much better to set this up.
Because when they split from England, that was a monarchy, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably what they were basing it on. We just don't want to be a monarchy.
Actually, you're right. There was part of their values came from like not the British way of doing it. So they.
When did the monarchy lose like executive power in the UK?
It was a transition as opposed to
because I feel
abrupt change, but around the early part of the 20th century, is when it became clear that the power is moving away from. Actually, even before that, so before the power came to like the population in the UK, it went from the monarchy to the nobility. Yeah, and then from the nobility, it went towards, I mean, some people would argue against it, but to the common folk. So there's even in the UK, they've got checks and balances. So the nobility still has some power. They've got veto power. It's called House of Lords over there. Oh, yeah. It's funny that they call it House of Lords. And then the lower body, which is their version of the Senate, but their lower body is called House of Commons. And so at some point, power shifted from House of Lords to House of Commons, which wasn't an abrupt shift, but it happened. I would argue it started with the start of the 20th century.
It sounds like America would be a lot better off now if they just had Australia's system or that English system, because then it would just be like, there'd be, the government would have total control. Maybe it would be worse because then Trump would have had total control, the Republicans would have total control, but at least, do you know what I'm saying? Like when you've got like fringe, like let's say fringe parties, then they'll have more absolute control to fringe decisions, like in Queensland, right? Where it's just like, there's no Senate, it's just two bodies. When you're fully in control, you're in control. But Jordan likes that system because it's like absolute. It's not watered down. It's like they'll just, the Republicans, whatever, will destroy the environment and then they'll get voted out. So the question is, hypothetically, would America be better with our system or not? Probably would be better. Because then, if Trump had his executive way, then it seems like America, there's a lot of like blaming on, it was this person's fault. But in Australia, you can't really do that. Albo can't be like, I can't do it because ScoMo did this, and this. It's like, you have full control. There's no excuses. I feel like America, there's so many excuses. There's so many bodies to be like, it was the judge's fault. It was this body's fault. It wasn't me. When in reality, it might be them. They're just saying like, I'm just bullshitting here and saying it was a judge, but really, I just don't want to do it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so I feel like I'm just thinking out loud, but I think America would be better off with our system.
Man, it's hard to tell because it's still early days.
Yeah.
You know, like you can. This is one of the most snarky things I've ever heard, but it's sort of it goes to this point. A Chinese diplomat was asked during a discussion on French Revolution and its impact on European politics in general, and he was asked, "What do you think is the impact of the French Revolution?" And he said something which will not make sense immediately, but he said, it's too soon to tell.
So you're just young society. And
so what he was saying is these massive groundbreaking transitions, for example, the establishment of America and this whole new this new idea of constitutionalism is still early days because we haven't seen the collapse of this empire just yet.
But you could say the same for China. They haven't always been like communist or a dictatorship. They were a monarchy, and then they went into their system, whatever the fuck theirs is,
and it didn't work. At some point, it failed. And it failed because they weren't able to technologically be as advanced as some of the. That's what kind of killed them.
But what I'm saying is, couldn't you say the same of every system?
You could, but you can also like look at things. This is a historian's subject. That's the problem. The idea like how certain changes, fundamental changes in the way a state works and its impacts is a historical topic as opposed to a political science topic.
Yeah, right.
Because political science and like what we're talking about is so narrow and it's so focused based on what's happening at the moment. But when you look at the long-term effects, you need hindsight to be able to make those calls that you're saying, like, would the Australian system be better for America?
Yeah.
We'll see. It's an overstretched empire that seems to be it seems like it's peaked already. And there's like this new competition coming up. But unless the competition, China's new system, there's going to be a battle, right? There's going to be a battle of ideas. And if America wins this battle of ideas, then they were proven right. That with all its flaws, with all its hiccups, it is a superior system. But maybe, let's say in 60, 70 years, probably when we're dead, it becomes clear that the American system collapsed for all those reasons that we've been talking about. And maybe authoritarian capitalism or maybe at that point authoritarian techno-feudalism
that sounds hectic.
Is more resilient.
Well, there's no argument.
Then it'll change. And then we'll wait for that system to collapse.
Because there's no argument that like you can point out and Jordan's not here so I can do it. You can point out the long list of atrocities and fucked up things about China all day. You can, and I can do that easy. Like you can list them and list them and list them. And I can bag on China all night, but they're doing something. Because from an economic perspective, at least, something's working. Look, man,
something is obviously working. But if you look at, and we've talked about the things that are working about China a lot on this pod. I have personally. I'm a fan of a lot of things. However, if you look at this example, there's like massive protests in China at the moment. So the China government is still there. They were until like actually a couple of weeks ago, they were adamant on their zero COVID policy.
Yeah.
And they kept pressurizing for COVID to be eliminated in China, which is something that only a dictatorial system can do 3 years into this pandemic when like the entire world has opened up and we already know the worst case scenarios here. And most of the countries have come to terms with, all right, this is the loss, this is the gain. However, we're vaccinated. Now we're at a point where like, we're just going to like, ride it. We're going to let it rip and we're going to go through with it. In China, because of the dictatorial system, if the leader, like in Xi Jinping's case, believes that COVID zero policy is better, there's a lot of people that still believe it, even in Australia, but majority of the people don't believe it, so it's not happening. you can still push through with it.
Yeah.
So what's happened is that there's been massive protests in China because of these lockdowns. They're still in lockdowns. And to the point where like the government has been pressurized to actually repeal some of those policies. In a system like Australia, you don't need, even though we did have protests, but you don't need that massive protest for policy to change. The feedback is more like it happens. Yeah. So we've slowly, gradually gotten out of it, and state governments that enacted these lockout laws are still in power in most of the states that existed in Australia. So clearly they were receptive to what the people wanted at the time, and when they didn't want it, they were able to reform themselves. But in China, it just kept going. So like the only way to get some policy change is for a few hundred people to die in protest. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
You know what I think it actually is? I've just realized this. This is what it is. And it sort of makes complete sense, right? I'm a genius. Check this out. Like our systems, let's say, generally speaking, you have more freedoms. Generally speaking, for day-to-day people, I would say life is a lot better. You have freedom of speech, freedom of protest, pretty much freedom to do whatever you want, just not kill anyone, really, right? Or incite hate, right? Otherwise, you're pretty free to do whatever the fuck you want.
Except, say, Kanye is right.
Yeah, except that. Well, that's might fall into it. But anyway, I think this is kind of like an anti-China perspective, I guess. But I think what it is like our systems might be better for freedoms, artistic freedoms, all that kind of shit. That's great. Is it though the best for competitiveness? No, it's not. It's not at all. So it's like if you think about it by the nature of it, checks and balances, debate, freedoms, these are all like lofty, what might be seen as lofty, like frivolous things of like, I want my caviar, and I don't think that. I think they're like imperative, but like someone more in from a dictatorship will see it that way. So I think the reality is like the West, let's say, is more like can get fatter off their freedoms. Then they're globally way less competitive. China, the freedoms are clamped down, and one guy says this is what's happening. But what that means is the whole ant hive is fucking gonna. It's like, you know, in Australia we say ants move this way, and then some move this way, some move that way, some do fuck all, sort of scatters. In which is freedoms. In China they say, no, we're all moving that way, and everyone fucking moves. And if you don't move that way, they beat your ass. That's not good for your freedom, but it's good for competitiveness. No wonder they're competitive and kicking ass, because they can just make these grand movements with every cunt in line being like, do it.
Again, if you look at it how things are today, yes.
Like a dictatorship makes things happen. It's competitive.
China was fucking poor.
That's what I'm saying. They got out of it.
Literally.
But that's why.
Until 2000. So what I'm saying is like the advantages that you're talking about, the advantages 100% exist. And like their progress has turbocharged.
Yeah.
But we don't know how resilient this is. We're judging America based on its supremacy for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
China's growth and like its candidacy for the global empire is like I would say a decade old, maybe.
Yeah.
And so, yes, what you're saying is true.
Philosophically, it's true, right?
Philosophically,
like freedom and competitiveness are antithetical.
But we'll have a better answer to that in 40 years, unfortunately.
But philosophically, it makes sense. Like it's as simple as like, you know, in China, let's say, if to Jordan I was like, hey, I need to go to New Zealand for a funeral, you know, just on a micro example level, let's say in China, whatever, dictatorship, he'd say, no, you know, like we need the business to run. I'll still make you, and then you have to stay.
That'll probably be a better decision.
Well, you're going for the China, but I'm just saying like for a competitiveness, for making money, for being robust, all that stuff, I should, hypothetically, he could say, no, stay, and I might be sad, but the company will grow. It's more competitive. In the West, it's like, take your time off. You know, the Australian way of chucking a sickie, that thing. It's like, that's not, chucking a sickie is not competitive. Sitting your ass at the beach is not competitive. So it's like, those two things are antithetical. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of funny that pundits in America would be like, China's just fucked in every way and like they don't have the freedoms. It's like true, but like you can't be a hard capitalist that is obsessed with growth on one hand and love freedom at the same hand. So they're antithetical. You can't.
It's true with Australia because and
America too,
but not so much America, because I have a different opinion on this. I don't think America and Australia are like in this case. Australia, there is that attitude. It's not competitive at all. The corporate culture is really relaxed. But that's because we're a very mineral-rich country. We can afford to. Like, the idea that, like, Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, apparently gifted every team member, the soccer team member of theirs, like a Rolls Royce for, like, beating one team and getting out in the group stage. But they can do it because, like, they've got shitload of oil and like
so resources comes into
resources
it.
comes we can afford to have a sickie because there's like this treasure that we're
that's
selling.
Just kind of lucky. But
the US is different though. Like they are geographically like rich too, but they are competitive. Like their corporate culture is very different.
It is. I was actually talking to an American the other day. They have 10 days off a year. We get 3 weeks or something.
And also like if you look at their competitiveness in manufacturing, their competitiveness has gone down. So they're not making like tables and chairs as well as they used to, or even cars for that matter. But if you look at the next 50 years, if you make tables well, you're not going to be the richest country. It's all about technology now. And if you look at technology, America is very competitive.
Sure, but like it's still, if anything...
So it's not, what I'm saying is like the flaw of it not being competitive is not based on the system itself. The system can be competitive.
I know it can be, but I think I think if anything, you're proving my point more because like China is mineral poor. On paper, they shouldn't even be fucking successful. But the fact that they have someone cracking the whip the way they are, that's how I think that's the only reason they've managed to pretty much overtake America. So like, I think it is a cultural thing. It's like if that is, let's call it that, like a dictatorship. They're surpassing America, and America should be surpassing them on every intellectual level. So it's like, it's almost. I think it's like it's almost just this. I don't know. It's almost like I still feel like there's a hypocrisy of being like I'm a hardcore capitalist that loves personal freedoms, because it's like, well, then your capitalism is going to be limited. Whereas in China, it's like you're a battery. You're a fucking battery, and it's like
an Android. You're
a battery, and it's like, guess what? Batteries are effective because they last till they die, and it's like, so. I guess what I'm saying is that's why I'm proud to be Australian and stuff, and I'm proud to kind of be like, to not be like work till you die, but at the same time, if someone's like, why is China doing so well? It's like, well, because they're not like Australia, you know. You don't have those personal freedoms. Like you have to hustle and like. You know, get beat, like all your personal freedoms beat down, but you can't have it both. You can't be like, I don't think you can be like an Australian and be like, I'm chucking a sickie. Also, our system, why isn't it doing as good as China? Anyway, I'm going on a sickie. It's like, that's why. Yeah. That's why. And it's like, you can't complain about it. It is what it is. It's kind of like, do you know what I mean? It's like the idea of someone that's lazy and someone that's like, to simplify it even more, someone that's lazy and someone that's competitive. The lazy person's like, I should get as much as the competitive person. It's like, well, how? You're never going to do that because you're not doing anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think we'll be all right. We've got plenty of treasures. But
that's just lucky. We're just lucky.
They call us the lucky country for a reason.
I know, but it's like, it's kind of like, I can't.
You know what we are? We're that millionaire that inherited it.
I know, but that's kind of.
You're like, oh, how are you going to afford a new Rolls Royce? Well, I can't. I've got money.
It's kind of immoral, though. Yeah, well, it's kind of immoral.
It is, but like, you know, this is the other.
Like if I were to say China, I think China is evil for many reasons. But if I were to say China is, how can I put it? If I said like China is evil. And I don't understand why they're more competitive than our country. It's like, because they're evil. That's why. You just said it. And it's like, well, that's annoying for me. And it's like, yeah, it is. I guess it is annoying. But like, you can't hold down someone that is more competitive. It's just a rule of nature. It's not going to happen. They're going to overtake you. So it's like basically what I'm saying is either philosophically, as an example, Australia gets more competitive and I don't want it to. I love Australia, but like how it is. But if we want to be able to like, and obviously population, I'm just saying, generalizing, or America, let's say America, China. If you want America to be as competitive as China, you have to be authoritarian. And it's like, maybe it's if you're touting capitalism and competitiveness, then you have to let China take over, because it's like, unless you're working 6 days a week, it's like, how are you going to, you know what I mean? Those two things conflate each other.
This is my observation as someone that came outside of this country.
Yeah.
What you're saying is true. However, it's partly the story. What some Australians don't give credit for is that, okay, so you've got a certain level of jobs that are like basic, that are essentially just based on hard work. Like working at a servo or working at like
retail.
It's like, it's based on, are you willing to show up?
Yeah.
Are you willing to put in the hours? You're going to get a certain amount of money. Yeah. And there's a lot of Australian attitude about that. Like, sicky, Christmas, I'm going to go. And then when I'm broke, I'll come back and I'll do it, but I'll hate you still. There's heaps of that.
Yeah.
But then there's another level of Australian worker that I've seen who is actually kind of passionate about what they're doing.
Jordan.
They're not doing it. Well, he's doing YouTube. I'm talking about people that have regular jobs.
All right.
People that are accountants, people that are plumbers, tradies.
Well, they get paid well, but yeah.
They get paid well, right? But they are actually, they want to do their job right, which is different to a lot of other places.
Right. Okay.
A plumber in Australia, a tradie, who might be dumb, might be uneducated, basically illiterate, but when they are trying to fix a leaking tap, they're not looking for shortcuts.
No,
they're looking to fix that problem.
Yeah,
and
I'd say it's most. I'd say it's most.
Yeah. I think overwhelming majority of them are like that, and that's a really, really good trait, because in some countries people look for shortcuts.
Yeah,
not Australians. And same thing when it comes to Australian researchers. People that are doing like high-tech stuff, they're truly passionate about it. The reason why they're not having those sick days is because they don't want to. And yes, they still go on their holidays, and that's fine. Maybe in China, they have no breaks. In Australia, they have breaks. But we believe that those breaks are not bad for you.
No, they're good for you.
Those breaks give you some added energy. So there's strengths as well.
But yeah, that's true. But is it more competitive?
What I'm saying is, like, generally, the idea that Australia is a lazy country is half the story. There's the lazy aspect of it, and then there's like those guns that are working really hard.
But my point is, I don't think you can even be lazy in China.
No, you can't.
That's what I'm saying.
No, you can't.
But that's what I'm saying.
You'll starve.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, like, what I'm saying is, I think maybe competitive countries, and America's gotten less competitive. Competitive countries naturally will win. They'll win overall, because of course they will. They're fucking pumping their hive hard, killing, like, destroying a lot of personal freedoms in the process. But like, so it's almost like with China, it's like, oh fuck, they're doing really well, and it's like, well, unless I think it'll just be for the West an uphill battle of being like, stop doing so well, and it's like, no, and it's like, fuck you. There's nothing that can be done, and it's tough actually, because I like the Australian way of life. I don't think it would be a great world if the rest of the world matched China's level of competitiveness, because then there's more to life. Fuck, be like, there's more to life. We
might be richer, but we'd be worse off mentally.
But you know what's weird in China? They have like an 80% approval of the government. They're happy. So it's like, what the fuck?
They love it's also cultural, dude. A lot of this stuff is cultural.
Right.
Some people are okay to be told what to do. And then some people are like, well, I was going to do it, but now that you've said it, fuck you. I'm not going to do it. So there's that cultural aspect.
So there's a cultural thing too, which is just adds to the problem of like, it's like, fuck it. Like, what are you going to do? Tell someone to stop trying so hard? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
And even a government, like, you wouldn't tell a government to be like, stop whipping your people into slavery. Not that they're doing that, but like, let's just say that. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that. And it's like, fuck, I'm going to be poorer. Like, it's almost like an existential question of like, it's almost like capitalism. Because what China did is it's like authoritarian capitalism. It's like capitalism on steroids. And it's like, dude, the West created this system. Now someone's pumped steroids into the balls of it. And you can't be like, but don't do that.
That's cheating.
That's cheating. And it's like, well, fuck it, I can do it. It's like, yeah, I guess you can. But like, it's almost like hypocritical. That's the thing. If you're in Australia and you're like hardcore capitalist, you can't whinge about about China. What can you whinge about? It's like they're doing it better than you.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, dude, what I say is ride the wave while we can. Buy all the fragua that we can afford now.
And on that note, let's end today's pod. Ride the wave that you can. Thank you for all those people that listen to us live. Thank you for people that watch this.
Thanks heaps. And sorry for the delays, but we will be back.
Really appreciate the support that you've given us post the entire Firebomb episode.
Yeah.
Jordan is not here today. Unfortunately, we can't go deep into why he's not here, but he will be here soon. We don't have a date of exactly when he's going to be here, but we'll try to get him here next week or maybe the week after that.
Yeah.
And
for now,
much love.
Yeah, for now it's Shawarma FM. Maybe next week. But look, this was basically like a fucking Chomsky pod. There's nothing to complain about. That was mad. And sign up to the Up Late if you want us to talk about, I don't know, our girl troubles or whatever.
Then there's some juicy stories there. All right,
but yeah, thanks for listening. And Friendlyjordies out.